A couple of years ago, Beverly Vansel gave us 2 incredibly beautiful quilts that she made. Now, we intended to hang those quilts immediately, but life as it is, those quilts got set off to the side, and honestly, we didn't feel like tackling the task of hanging them up ourselves because we wanted to put one of them in our 2-story stairwell. So a few weeks ago, when we were so blessed to have both of our sons at our home at the same time, we decided this was the chance. Let's get them involved in the hanging of the quilts. They are much younger than we are, and certainly it'll be much easier for them to get on a ladder and hang those quilts. Well, as many of you know, during the hanging effort, our youngest son, Luke, lost his balance and fell backward off the ladder and down the bottom staircase, fracturing his right ankle and his left wrist. It was an awful accident. It was no one's fault, but it was a moment filled with regret. What Luke and all of us in attendance experienced that evening were a ton of overwhelming feelings of if only. If only we hadn't asked them to hang that up. If only we had done it ourselves. If only someone had been spotting him on the ladder. If only he had moved the base of the ladder a little further from the wall. If only we could push rewind and do it all over again without the accident part. Regret is defined as a feeling of sadness, repentance, or disappointment over something that has happened or has been done. Now, we all have something to regret. Unkind words spoken, bad habits continued, resolutions unfulfilled. What matters is what we do with that regret. Or perhaps a better way to say it might be what our regret does with us. When we feel regret, it means we have a tender heart. And that's not a completely bad thing. When we have made a mistake or said or done something that we wish we could take it back, that means we care. We have feelings for not just ourselves, but for other people. Regret tells us there is pain involved, and there is something to grieve and heal from. And the pain that comes from regret actually can produce change in us. We've all experienced accidents, like the clip we just saw from The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. We have all been caught in a collision course where a series of events occurred and impacted our lives in unimaginable ways. Again, filled with thoughts of if only. This is an example of the first kind of regret, accidents that happen often beyond our control. But we replay that event over and over in our minds, and we struggle to scrape the images off the walls of our brain. Replaying a misstep causes us further pain. We already have the physical or the emotional pain, and then we just keep looping that event over and over for quite a while. I watched Luke fall backwards off that staircase, off that ladder, 1,000 times. And there's no pause button. It already happened. My fears and my anxiety were heightened by replaying it. There is no rewind button. There is no opportunity to go back and do it over, this time without the accident or the problem. A second basket of regret contains the things that we have done and said that got us into trouble, that caused someone else considerable pain, that caused suffering for someone. Perhaps we were careless with our words or spoke out of anger with words that are nearly impossible to take back or to ask someone to forgive. We often get into trouble when our anger intersects with our lack of self-control. American writer Ambrose Bierce wrote, "Speak when you are angry, and you will make the best speech you will ever regret." Just like the playing of an accident, we often find ourselves asking a lot of hypothetical questions after we have done or said something that we regret. What if I had acted differently? What if I took that other opportunity? What if I just didn't say what I said? Or in more modern terms, what if I hadn't sent that text to the wrong person? Because we cannot go back in time, we will never know the answers to those questions. So we keep ruminating about the occurrence, thinking that same thought over and over. And when we can't stop thinking about it or move forward, we are experiencing the devastatingly negative impact of the feeling of regret. But would it surprise you to know that there are actually some positive aspects that result from our feelings of regret? Regret is actually a healthy, common feeling that we all feel every once in a while. And in some ways, it can be beneficial. Regret can improve our decision-making skills. Regretting past decisions can help us to make better, more thoughtful choices in the future. This might mean a career choice or a personal decision. I shouldn't have accepted this job. I should have waited for something better. Next time, I will listen to my gut. I should have asked that person out on a date. Now she's married to somebody else. Next time, I won't procrastinate. Regret can motivate us. Regrets can motivate us to do better, to take healthy risks, to focus our energy on what matters to us. Often when we are in the middle of feeling regret, our priorities come screamingly into focus. When we are feeling regret, we are probably in the middle of a significant life lesson that we need to pay attention to and learn from. If we've lost someone and we realize we didn't spend enough time with that person, we are much more likely to reappropriate our time and to spend time with the people that we love and who matter to us. Regret can inspire gratitude. As soon as we got Luke to the emergency room and he was checked out initially by the doctor, and we realized the sources of the pain and where the breakages were, and that it wasn't worse, we all began to make statements of gratitude. Oh, it could have been so much worse. Oh, he could have broken his back. Oh, he could have broken his, all of it, at least he's alive. All of the gratitude came rushing in to that emergency room and out of every one of our mouths. Also, oftentimes our regret can fuel a deeper appreciation for the decisions that we don't regret and all of the positive things that we do have in our lives. Now, one type of regret that I haven't mentioned yet is the basket filled with the things we didn't do. Poet John Greenleaf Whittier wrote these words, "For of all the sad words of tongue and pen, the saddest are these, it might have been." And to that bleak statement, I say this, it's not over yet. Many of the things that we meant to do can still be done. I think I'm definitely past the point where I can swim the English Channel or go skydiving, but there are many, many things that I can still do. I just need to be able to let go of my regret and move forward. One way to move forward is a tough way. It's to forgive ourselves. And it's so simple, but it's a lesson that we learn millions of times in our lifetime. We aren't perfect. We make mistakes. There is no perfect person. There is no perfect life. And when we are brutally reminded of our flaws, we don't like that. But there is phenomenal freedom and grace available to us when we are able to admit our human failings, when we can forgive ourselves. Then we can move forward. Now, God promises us throughout the Bible that there will be forgiveness for us and that God will not abandon us. God tells us very directly to forget about it. Forget about the past with these words found in Isaiah. I think I quoted a portion of this verse just a few weeks ago. It's one of my favorite verses. Forget the events of the past. Ignore the things of long ago. Look, I'm doing something new. Now it springs forth. Can't you see it? I'm making a road in the desert and setting rivers to flow in the wasteland. Now let's take a moment and look at the imagery in that passage. God says, I am making something new. I'm making a road in the desert. Spending time in the desert is a metaphor and it's used several times in the Bible, and it means that people are wandering around, that they're lost or they're broken or they're emotionally or physically in pain, and they're wandering around lost. They are in the desert. You know what a desert looks like? It's a bunch of sand, and often there's no clear path in either direction. Yet God is making a road for us in the desert so we can get out of it. It's a clear path out. It's like an arrow, this way out of the desert. And then God is setting rivers to flow in the wasteland. And if the wasteland has flowing rivers, it's no longer a wasteland. God is giving us a way out of the pain and the suffering and the feeling of being lost. God helps us get out of our past rumination, and we get to move forward out of the desert. Now, we aren't taught very much about regret or how to avoid it, so I find this particular example very comforting when someone takes it upon themselves to teach us about regret. In 1990, former First Lady Barbara Bush delivered the commencement address at Wellesley College in Massachusetts, a liberal arts university for women. Here is part of what she said to the graduates. As important as your obligations as a doctor, lawyer, or business leader will be, you are a human being first. And those human connections with spouses, with children, with friends are the most important investments you will ever make. At the end of your life, you will never regret not having passed one more test, not winning one more verdict, not closing one more deal. You will regret time not spent with a husband, a child, a friend, a parent. Our success as a society depends not on what happens in the White House, but what happens inside your house. Powerful words, Barbara Bush. My friends, we have all things to regret. We have all made silly statements. We have all done things that bring about regret. In addition to forgiving ourselves for our past mistakes, we need to extend some empathy to ourselves. We are often so much better at giving grace and empathy to other people who are feeling regretful about a past action than we ever are to ourselves. Remember that we can only make decisions based on the information we have at the time. If we did the best we could with the knowledge we had, we did the best we could. We need to stop beating ourselves up about our decision. Hindsight is definitely 20/20. But we didn't have hindsight in that moment. We're all brilliant later. My prayer for each of us today is that we find a way through the desert of regret. And we choose to move past those paralyzing feelings toward a better life without shame or regret. Amen.